Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Micah. I'll be your astrologer for today. And today we are going to be talking all about the new moon in Libra that's occurring on October 21st. We will be doing tarot scopes in a separate video, but this is just going to be the breakdown of the new moon in Libra. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. So, whenever we have a new moon, it's new beginnings, things are a bit uncertain. We might feel like we are on shaky footing and we're just kind of really going on intuition rather than what we can see. Um, Feelings, intuition, like as well as like what's coming next are oftentimes hidden during a new moon as well. But when the moon is in Libra, we're focusing in on fairness, the work that actually has been put into something to make it last versus does something just kind of look good on the surface and doesn't really have any weight or substance to it. We also see relationships really becoming something that is focused on when the moon is in Libra as well. We can also see legal things, justice, politics, and just kind of like partnerships and just kind of like some themes of fairness and integrity coming in as well. But mostly, we're seeing a big focus on partnerships when the moon is in Libra. And so we can see some indecisiveness as well, weighing whether or not to go this way or that way. And so it's kind of like a fork in the road. Libra is also an air sign, and so it's very communicative. And so it can be a great time for connecting with new people, especially since it's a new moon. But also, we can see that values are still also really focused in on with those new people that we're connecting with, or even with the ones that we are connected with now. Um, and bringing those relationships back up for judgment on whether or not they still fit those values. We see the ruler of this new moon being Venus in Libra at a 9, which is in Sagittarius. And so it can be, learning something new with a partner, exploring with a partner, traveling with a partner. We see the actual new moon at a 28, which is a Cancer degree. And so it can be learning from home with a partner, traveling back home with a partner, making a new home with a partner. I could see all of those things coming back in. We could also see a partner really challenging us to look at different perspectives. Um, whether we are in a new relationship or a long-standing relationship, I think that's something that we can see for sure with this rulership being over the new moon in Libra. But whatever is happening, I do think that there's going to definitely be some back and forth. And it's just going to be very transformative because even though this isn't the focal point, we do have Mars and Mercury exactly conjunct. And so there can be a lot of really intense, serious conversations around transformation having to do with our relationships because Mars and Mercury are going to be in what would be considered like a second house position to the new moon in Libra. And so there can be a lot of discussions about actions that could change things for the future, or just like conversations surrounding insecurities or things that we would rather suppress, but do need to be put on the table so that we're able to judge our situations with the people that we love and care about fairly, especially when we're talking about emotional vulnerability. Because, like we said, we have Cancer that is at we have a Cancer degree happening for the new moon in Libra, but also 20 degrees is a Scorpio degree, and we already have Mercury and Mars in Scorpio. And this Mercury Mars conjunction with that double Scorpio energy is already giving me a lot of like what we say we're going to change, we need to change, or this could make or break a relationship. And we've got to move on beyond some may are possibly very avoidant tendencies or the things that are really just killing the relationship. And I think that's definitely where this 9 degrees um, comes in with the ruler of this new moon because it's saying we have to push into more of like the expansion or the light. We have to break out into something new, or else this connection could possibly die. Now, what we also see is the opposition to the new moon that's happening from Chiron in Aries. Now, when we have Chiron in Aries, Chiron in general is kind of like when I do asteroids, I like to think of them as kind of like a planetary fusion because a lot of times asteroids are just that when we're talking about their vibe and what they actually create. And so, Chiron is kind of like if you mash together Saturn energy with Neptune energy, as well as maybe like a little bit of Virgo energy together, because it's the wounded healer, and so we do see some endings and things that we have not like actually like formed together. Saturn and Neptune are like almost like exact opposites, but they do have a lot in common. They both limit, and they both can create some wounds. Saturn is limitation and it asks for foundation and reality. Neptune is mystical and it is limitless and doesn't have a lot of boundaries and it's just kind of like everywhere. But where both kind of overlap is that fantasy, that want to transcend um the realities and the limitations to be something higher, to be something more, like just to be something more, and to be something greater. Now, when we see it in Aries, what we can see is one, we can see headaches, which is something I always think about when I see Chiron in Aries as more of a physical manifestation. But we can see headaches, like literally partners being a bit of a headache. Like the first thing that comes to mind is, are you being your partner's peace or are you being their headache? But also, what we could see is Libra is more of like that we energy. It's also about truth and values and fairness. And when we see Chiron in Aries, it can really bring out, especially with that opposition, it can bring out where our partner's being a bit more selfish than we are. Where is reciprocity lacking? Where are they just kind of ghosting us and not letting us in fully, and like being completely um, like completely like here with us in the moment so that um, the relationship can be at its best, especially like I said with Mercury and Mars both being in Scorpio at Scorpio degrees. Something else I could see is that some relationships unfortunately don't survive. I mean, I know that I feel like I've like been like a broken record over the past couple of weeks. But this is very much that energy. If we put Saturn and Neptune and a bit of Virgo energy into Aries, it's not only saying, where am I just a bit too emotionally closed off because maybe it feels scary, it feels unknown, and I don't want to share that with my partner. And I'm working to open up so that we can make the relationship be able to breathe. But on the flip side, it's saying, can I heal that maybe with going to therapy with my partner? Can I talk to my partner? Do I feel safe like opening up? Vulnerability wise, or am I just going to do that more in a more lonely sense? Am I going to kind of cover my own needs, and just kind of do what my partner needs? Am I going to people please? Am I going to lean into just kind of being of service, which is definitely that Virgo energy coming up? Another way we could see it is, am I just going to completely forget about the partnership altogether and say I can do this on my own and take on more of that attitude of, if you can't trust other people to do it yourself. Um, and I could definitely see that not only with the Mercury and Mars conjunction with Scorpio, but also we have Chiron not only in an opposition to Libra, but also both the new moon in Libra is in a square to Jupiter in Cancer as well as to Chiron. And so we've got a T square happening. And so something pretty big is happening when it comes to the nurturing and being present in our relationships and creating safe spaces in our relationships versus where we might fear like showing ourselves fully to somebody else, um, or where we might hide from our relationships or hide from integrity, hide from fairness in some way, shape, or form when it comes to other people. And so don't be surprised if you see quite a few people acting a little shady, lying or omitting certain things or just being very um, and possibly a little gossipy. Whenever we're in Libra season, we can always see gossip really, becoming a thing, especially with Venus in Libra at a 9. It can be, news that is like playing like telephone almost. But Jupiter and Cancer being at a 24 can definitely be like maybe I'm moving away from family for a relationship, and maybe that relationship is healthy, maybe it's not, but it's up to our discernment to decide that, to look at how much work has been put in on both sides of that relationship to assess, can it actually weather, like maybe creating its own roots and moving away from the roots of family, or what is familiar, because it's not just about like family roots, it is about familiarity. Cancer energy is familiarity, but Pisces energy is kind of more the unknown, as well as compassion and emotion. It's also about like what's unseen. And so you could see like some surprises coming up when it comes to partners, your partners needing to tell you something a bit unexpected. um, and but still very serious. You could see some partners, really going into their shell, possibly being a bit selfish. Um, it can be a hard time for relationships, and so what I would say is just kind of do your best. You can only, like, I know that, again, I feel like I say this a thousand times, like, you can only control yourself, especially with all of this water energy coming out. You can't force anybody to be emotionally vulnerable with you, because oftentimes that's the hardest thing for a lot of people to do, is to be emotionally vulnerable and not to hide or run or to sidestep or passively sidestep conflict that needs to be put in to actually make a relationship work. Now, not all is lost. What we do have in our back pocket, and I don't want to like end this video on a sour note. What we do have in our pocket is that we have the this water trine still happening between Mercury and Mars in Scorpio. That's making a lot of transformation in conversations that lead to action. But we also have that making it energetic, as well as almost like a very close trine to Saturn and Pisces, which can be great for creating foundation, as well as saying, okay, we're going to stick to this. We're going to make a plan and a commitment to emotionally be vulnerable with each other, and just kind of let go or dissolve some of the hard, rigid lines or judgments that we might have about each other, so that things can be a bit more productive when it comes to relationships and sharing. Um, like Mars and Mercury being in Scorpio with Saturn in Scorpio is a lot about like working together, possibly through your hands, or like sexually, even in the bedroom. I could see that with Pisces and Scorpio energy being at play. But also, this is very much like that energy of like, let's make whatever we're talking about real. Let's not only talk about the vulnerability, but let's like actually make a safe space for each other. Let's make the dream real. Let's transform it and make it real, so that it's much more productive and it's solid, because all of that is also making that trine to Jupiter and Cancer, which does create that safe space, and a lot of like just like homey kind of vibes, and more open to like nurturing things. Even though Mars doesn't do the best in water signs, it does really open us up to being honest with ourselves, and therefore being able to be honest with other people. Um, and being able to open up with family, friends, and other relationships. Now, this water trine is not really visible from the Libra energy that we're experiencing. So, the only thing I would say is uh, to try and make you to and try to excuse me. Ooh, my goodness, I can talk. Is to do your best to maybe possibly find a mediator if you're comfortable with that. Libra can be a lot about mediation, and so that's why I mentioned like maybe therapy could be helpful, or to if you can't find a mediator in situations like with romantic partners, friendships, or like even business partnerships, if you can't find that, or just like even with yourself, have an outside source that is able to kind of you're able to bounce ideas off of. If you can't find that, possibly like just do like short spurts of the conversations, so that things don't get overwhelming emotionally. But that is all I have for the new moon in Libra. It's definitely going to be a very interesting one. And it can definitely be very healing if done correctly. It's not all gloom and doom. But other than that, guys, that is all I have for the new moon in Libra breakdown. And I will see you guys next week with the new moon horoscopes. Bye.